welcome back to the 7Sage LSAT podcast. Usually we're here telling you about LSAT preparation and study habits, but we have a slightly different agenda today. This is part 2 of a conversation between myself, I'm Nicole by the way, and ZeSean, where we're talking about our experiences during our 1L fall of law school. So I'm a 1L at Berkeley Law, ZeSean is a 1L at Columbia. And in the last episode, we were talking about the first few weeks of law school, kind of getting used to cold calling, reading for classes, different ways you might case brief. Today, we're going to be talking more about studying, getting into the nitty gritty for midterms, maybe how you outline. And we also want to touch on extracurriculars and different aspects of the social life at law school or in law school. So what should we start with, ZeSean? I'm cold calling you now.
Yeah, you're cold calling me. You're maybe naturally a lot of it will tie together. I think the middle of the semester was some of the most fun part of it. Actually, I'll say every part had a fun part. Like orientation was fun because you meet all these people, everything's new. You're like reading your first cases. You're kind of getting excited about them. The middle is fun because you're kind of hitting your groove. You've met some people, you've made some friends. You're going out to dinners with your different social clubs. Maybe you're doing a little firm recruiting and getting free meals on the firm. And you're taking midterms, so you're kind of synthesizing what you know. The end is fun because you've got like no class and you're cozy in the library studying with your friends. Finals week has its own charm, but we're talking about the middle. There's a lot going on. I felt like my middle was a lot, like midterms, firm recruiting, social events, all the above. Well, maybe one question I'll ask you is, how did midterms work at Berkeley? Were they graded? Did every class have one? What was the vibe? Were they stressful?
Yeah, good question. So I realized in the last episode, we didn't say what classes we actually took. Maybe that would be helpful. So it sounds like both of us were in Civ Pro. Naturally, I think most fall 1Ls are in Civ Pro. And then it sounds like most 1Ls start with some form of like a research or writing class. So I had like legal research and writing. Did you have something like that?
Yeah, we call it LPW, Legal Practice Workshop, which was mostly legal research and writing. But I think we did a couple other things like negotiation and we had a couple other modules. So, but it's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, same. So ours was very similar, LRW. And then in terms of substantive classes, I also had contracts and I had criminal law. What about you?
I had contracts and torts.
Okay, yeah. So we're swapping next semester, basically. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. So back to the question you asked. I just thought that would be helpful. People are like, what are you even actually studying? So I had midterms in all 3 substantive classes, so not legal research and writing, and none of them, well, let me think actually. Only one of them was graded, and it was worth only 10 points out of like 100 total for your grade. The other 2 technically were graded, but there's a system like if you do better on your final, it totally erases your midterm. Or like I think the other one was it's just pass or credit, no credit. Sorry, not pass fail. Credit, no credit. So basically it's a very, very low lift assignment. And I know a lot of us were thinking like, if you do better on the final, it'll cancel out. Well, what if I do worse on the final? Well, that's not going to happen because the final has like way more opportunities to do better because our midterms were like 1 issue spotter in each class and the final is much more robust. So I thought it was a really good way to practice for the final and not be super stressed because most likely it's not going to impact your grade at all. For some classes, it won't for sure. And it was identical basically to the final, just one small fraction of it, like 1 issue spotter as opposed to like multiple. How about you?
Yeah, ours, it's similar. So we had midterms. We had 1 required midterm. The rest were optional. And the 1 required one was not graded. So in our contracts class, our contracts was our small section. So we had a midterm that the professor, it was like a previous year's exam that she like opened up for us to take. We could take it on our own time. It was 4 hours, open note, open book, as law school exams mostly are. And we could take it anytime within this like, few day window. So she read them. I think she read maybe like the first few pages of them and gave us like very quick feedback. We had meetings with her of like, they were literally like less than 10-minute meetings where she was like, here's what you did well, here's what you can work on, like, good job, and try to do this on the real exam. But they were very low stake. It was like an opportunity to synthesize kind of what you've learned up until then and to practice taking a real law school exam and what that feels like. But it was totally low stakes. So contracts, we took the midterm, we had the meetings, we got the feedback, totally ungraded. Civ Pro, we had an optional midterm that was 2 hours, and we
wait. I should interject.
Sorry,
I realize we keep saying Civ Pro. Sorry, I forget, but we like know the acronym. So it's civil procedure. Yeah, civil procedure for anybody that's like, what the heck is that? It's like the procedural aspects of how a suit progresses through the U.S. court system. Back to ZeSean. So your midterm.
Yes. So for civil procedure, we had an optional 2-hour midterm. So we had a deadline, and it's like, if you do it by this day, you can send it to your TA, and then your TA will give you feedback, which I did, sent it to the TA. The TA gave me feedback. It was one question on whether there was personal jurisdiction in a given, there's a fact pattern, yeah. So it was a lot of international shoe and BMS and Ford and you guys will
learn all of these things. Yes.
McGee and Hansen versus Decla and
Decla.
Yeah, right. So civil procedure, optional midterm. And then for torts, we had an optional midterm that honestly I never even did. So, and the professors were kind of cool about it. They're like, if it's going to help you, do it. If not, save it till the end and do it in prep for the final. So with torts, I just took that midterm and I just did it during my reading week when I was preparing for the final. So, and it wasn't like there wasn't an opportunity to get feedback or anything anyway. So it was just like up to us. So anyway, midterms at Columbia were very low stakes. It was maybe stressful because it added a layer of work of like studying during already doing readings and all the other stuff that was going on. But you didn't have the stress of like, this is going to impact my future.
Yeah. But I think it's also very necessary to have midterms. I know a lot of my classmates were like, why are we doing this? We should just have finals. I think it's cool because it's a checkpoint to see how your study methods are working. And we can also describe like the content, like what an issue spotter means. But just from a larger standpoint, like we talked about, the midterm is very similar to your final. And so you might experience a bit of a shock. I had a crazy shock on my contracts midterm because I thought my study methods were going super well. I was like, I'm killing it so far. Then I took my midterm. We also had like meetings with our professor. Did not do very hot at all. So it's a good way to be like, okay, I need to rethink how I'm doing things. Like clearly my 20 pages of notes for one case is not working. I need to do things differently. And that's when you rework and then you start taking other practice tests and figure out what works better for you. So it's very helpful to have like a mid-semester checkpoint. And I should say, I keep throwing out words and then not defining them. So apologies. We didn't define Civ Pro. Now you have that. We also were saying issue spotter and didn't say what that is. So I can define that. So an issue spotter is the style of exam that you have in law school. I mean, sometimes you'll have multiple choice and other stuff, but the idea of an issue spotter is you have like this long hypothetical fact pattern that sometimes will be similar to cases that you read already in class. So like, I don't know, for contracts, it could be like Joe is trying to sell his 20 pounds of bricks and he needs to find someone to buy them. And this person's going to use them to then build a house. And then this is how much they cost. But oh no, the guy got sick and never built the house. And it'll be like a whole page of just a bunch of hypothetical stuff. And the idea is as you're reading, you're supposed to be like, oh, wait, the guy got sick and he never built the house. This is reminding me of when you have a breach and what would be the damages. Oh, like the quality of his bricks, right? So you start remembering how this connects to class. And in the end, you write an essay, usually. I don't know, maybe yours are a little different, but you write an essay where you describe how a court would likely rule on the different problems in that hypothetical. So like my hypothetical construction worker got sick or whatever. So how many damages would he have to pay? Or would he even have to pay damages? Did he breach, right? Those are the things you're answering in your essay. And it sounds scary now, but it makes a lot of sense once you learn all the material and have a ton of time practicing.
Yeah.
Yours was similar?
Basically exactly the same. Yeah, I think maybe one lesson I'll share that I learned is like, sometimes the way you study for class or for your cold calls is a little bit different for how you'd study to do an issue spotter, right? When you're doing a reading for class, you're really diving into the facts. You are preparing for a cold call. You kind of want to know the ins and outs of a case so that whatever the professor asks, you can kind of, say something about it. For the issue spotter, it's more about practicing. It's like, there's a scenario and it touches on many aspects of the law and the doctrine, and you want to be able to like pool from your memory / your notes, like what cases apply to this situation. And there will be parts of that scenario that don't fit neatly with anything you've read. And so maybe you have to combine some cases or analogize and say, there is this case where they ruled on something similar, but this is different for these reasons, but I think it would go this way because it has this element, like Nicole was saying, in contracts, you might have a scenario where you have a person who's making a bunch of deals with a bunch of people, a bunch of contracts, bunch of promises, and then they all fall through, and they'll all be kind of different. They'll all be kind of different from what you've read. Some will be similar, and you just have to pull all those cases and attach them to the issues, spot the issues, and then kind of weigh in on how it would go. So exactly the same thing. The only thing I'll add is some of our classes, because our grade submission deadline got pushed up because of recruiting, some of our classes did a multiple choice component as well. Very unusual, unprecedented, but like in contracts, we had a couple multiple choice questions and a shorter issue spotter than usual. Usually we had a long issue spotter. They cut it down and added some multiple choice, I think, to make grading faster. Again, we don't know what's going to happen with recruiting going forward. Recruiting is, we're in unprecedented territory, unprecedented times. So everything is a little out of whack right now. So some of the classes were a little bit different, but overall, what Nicole is saying is what you mostly find at every law school. And I think the reason you find it at every law school is because law school curriculum is very standardized and all of your professors all went to the same schools and they learned it this way. And so they orchestrate their classes this way. So it's pretty universal, I think.
And both of us were not humanities majors. I was a biology major in undergrad. I remember you're also in like a STEM math,
I did chemistry,
physics?
yes. Yeah.
Oh, chemistry.
Yeah.
Right. So some of the listeners might be thinking, it sounds like you do a lot of writing. Besides the multiple choice, your exams are mostly essay based. And then of course in your legal research and writing class, you do like a memo, which is very long also. And so I went into law school pretty scared because I never had to write like a long academic document. I had to, of course, write like research documents, but that's very different than writing like a memorandum. So that was a bit of an adjustment. But what I will say is that your reading and writing class is the one that teaches you everything you'll possibly need to know for how you answer the issue spotters. So I know we were talking about this in the last episode. Like some people feel like they have to prepare and read books that teach you about like IRAC and CREAC and all those acronyms you're going to learn about for how you write exam answers later. But your classes will actually teach you how to do those things. And we had lots of opportunities in each substantive class to practice too. Like each professor in my criminal law class, for example, every few weeks we would get like a practice question that was a hypothetical. And we would practice writing our, essay response. And we would have the opportunity to go over it in class, peer review it with our friends, and like in class with a rubric and stuff. So you have lots of chances to work on your writing. I wouldn't be afraid. Like right now, you might be thinking, oh, snap, I'm going to have to write like a 20-page memo at some point. It's not going to feel that scary when you're actually doing it because you'll have everything you possibly need to be able to churn out that much writing. I never wrote anything more than like 3 or 4 pages, I think, in undergrad. And I was like, I don't possibly have enough thoughts to fill 20 pages. You will. Trust. You'll do a fantabulous job.
Yeah, I don't even think we didn't have a 20-page memo. We had a closed memo assignment early on where they gave us a set of cases, like, like a closed universe of cases, and then we kind of used them to weigh in on an issue. Then we had an open memo where we got to use Lexis and Westlaw to do research and weigh in on an issue. But even the open memo, I don't think ours was 20 pages. I think it was a lot shorter than that. So maybe I got off a little easy.
Yeah, but also we were writing it. Were you guys writing it in segments? Like we're like bouncing off everything. Sorry, we're now talking about our like legal research and writing class. So we would write it in like chunks. So like weeks 2 and 3, we wrote what did we write? The rule statement. Then we went into the fact statement. Then we went into the next chunk. So we never had to write like a whole giant document at once. It was little pieces. At the very, very end, we did do a closed universe memo, like ZeSean is describing, that we did ourselves, and we had like exactly 7 days to do it. But it was much shorter, so it was way less of a lift, and it was pretty chill. And my LRW class actually ended way earlier than every other class. Like we ended in like week 7, I think, week 8 maybe. I don't remember exactly which week. And then at that point, you only have the doctrinal classes. What about you?
Yeah, we ended a couple of weeks early, and I think we just did it flipped. We did the closed one first, the open one later.
Cool.
We didn't do it section by section. I guess every school is going to be slightly different, but at the end, you'll come out with 2 things you've written in the first semester, and then we're going to do a bigger one, I think, next semester.
Same.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
so it's really not that different. Like the vibes maybe are a little bit different. Like the professors are different, but most people have a pretty universal, I think, 1L curriculum. Okay, we've been talking a lot about like writing assignments and essays. Maybe now would be a good time to switch to like more fun things like social life and extracurricular activities.
What clubs were you in? What did you join?
I was going to ask you the same thing.
Yeah.
So at Berkeley, we went in being told that the norm is like 1 journal, 1 slip. Slips at Berkeley are like pro bono organizations. I think it's student-led pro bono initiative, something like that. You can Google it, SLP, for anybody that's interested in Berkeley. So it's like a pro bono org where you do some form of pro bono work, and like 99% of 1Ls at Berkeley do that. So you could pick which one, though. There's an application process, but there's like over 40 or 50 of them, and they all do very different kinds of work. So you can apply. There's like a giant fair at the beginning of the semester where all of the pro bono slips will like have a booth and give out food and talk to you about their work. And there's like a big performance thing they do. And then at like week 3 or 4, they open the applications, and it's very chill. It's just like a 1 paragraph, like, why do you want to join this slip as opposed to others? And then you rank your like top 5 preferences, and they put you in the slips, and everybody who wants to be in a slip gets one. And then some of them are a semester long and some are a year long. So I know that I want to go into transactional work. So I applied to the transactional ones, and the one that I ended up being in was called the Startup Law Initiative. So myself and 2 other 1Ls were in a team. We're partnered with a local low-income founder, and we helped him incorporate his business in Delaware, which you'll learn in 1L why people incorporate in Delaware, but that doesn't matter. So we filed all his incorporation documents for his business, and then next semester we're doing all the employment documents for when he hires his first engineers and stuff. So that maybe sounds boring to some people. It's just filling out documents. So it's not like super sexy or anything, but it was relevant to what I want to do. And then I'm in a journal, but I guess we could talk about journals after. Do you have like some kind of like experiential type club situation?
This is maybe where our schools are actually quite different, because we don't do 1L journals. We don't do we do there are some 1L positions on certain topical journals. I was not in any of that. But certainly not in law review or anything like that. And then the pro bono stuff is also, I think, I could be wrong, but I think limited to the 2Ls and 3Ls. Like my 1L social life was like, I joined the Muslim law students. I joined the South Asian Law Students Association. And those were just basically dinners and meet and greets and social events. Not anything like sort of pro bono-y. I joined a human rights initiative. It was the Human Rights 1L Advocates Program. And we basically did we attended a lot of talks with human rights professionals. We did a lot of lunches, and we learned about the career and got to talk to practitioners. And then next semester, we'll do like a research project where we'll help a professor do research for a few hours a week. But nothing super pro bono-y yet. I also joined the Student Senate, which was cool.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah, I ran a little campaign and I got elected, which was fun.
Love it. Wait,
And
what's your
so,
position? So is it just Senate, like you all have equal positions? Or do you guys have like a president, VP, whatever, treasurer, etc.?
yeah, we have an executive board, president, VP, treasurer, etc., budgetary chair, and I'm just a senator. But you can run for a bigger position, as an upperclassman. So I think I joined. Oh, and then I did another thing. I won a grant, actually, through the Davis Polk Leadership Initiative, to do a project at school. And the project I pitched was doing cross-partisan dialogue sessions for students at the law school. So we had to write an application. So it was a whole written thing about like, what's your project idea? What's your relevant experience? Why do you want to do this? What's your plan to, put in an action? So we did that, and then we had interviews, and they chose a few of us, and so they gave us this grant, and now we do weekly lunch sessions on like leadership training, and we're gonna get support to do these like projects. And there's all sorts of really diverse and unique projects that other student groups are doing. Stuff on AI, stuff on training people on different types of legal careers. One of my friends is doing something on teaching chess to in low income schools in Harlem. So anyway, there's some cool stuff, being done. But anyway, all is to say, I think there's a little difference here. I think you guys, maybe as 1Ls, get a little more access to journals, to pro bono. It sounds like you're almost doing clinical type of stuff really early.
So we do have clinics, and those are only for 2Ls and 3Ls. And clinics is more like, I guess actually it's kind of similar. I mean, I guess the pro bono, why people want to do pro bono 1L, and I guess maybe that's what makes Berkeley unique, that they allow us to do it, is because you get the direct client interaction from 1L. I think clinics also have client interaction, but they do a lot of writing as well. And they write on legal subjects. They prepare some articles kind of similar to journals, and kind of like a choose your own adventure. Some people do regulatory stuff in clinics, but pro bono is more like very early stage client interaction. Like I know we have some pro bono works or slips, like the name and gender change workshop. That one's really popular, where you actually have like sessions once a week, and you meet with clients and you hear their story, like face to face, one on one. Or like my slip, you met with a founder and you actually get to talk to them all the time, etc. So it's just practice talking to people, I think, like getting client service experience. We do have journals, yes. And it seems like a huge majority of 1Ls are in journals. I don't know the percentage. But yeah, most people are like one journal, one slip. The only journal that's closed for 1Ls is California Law Review, which is like a whole different beast, I think, at all schools. Well, obviously yours is in California Law Review, but Law Review, which is like a very rigorous type of journal. But we have a lot of different topical journals. So I wanted to be very intentional, about stuff I joined. I didn't want to overcommit and then really struggle in class. So I chose to join a journal that was a much lower time commitment than other ones were. So I'm in the Journal of Entertainment and Sports Law. I love it. It's really fun. Our events are really cool. We go to like sports games and go to entertainment industry type stuff. But it's like way less hours per semester than some of the more heavy lift ones. Like there's the famous like Berkeley Journal of Tech, which just requires some more time. It's awesome. They publish really cool articles, but I just knew that I didn't want to have to commit to like 30 hours in the semester as a 1L fall. So yeah, I'm in Entertainment Sports Law Journal and the Startup Law pro bono slip. And then that's all I did. I didn't join any like affiliation groups because the journal and the slip also host like dinners and events and recruiting stuff. So I was like, okay, I have like a million things on my calendar already. I was going to join like there's like women in tech law or like etc. But I was like, okay, I'll call it at these two. And I think it was a good balance. I had enough time to study and enough time to go to events and do recruiting. And I was happy with the stuff I got to do. I would just say like my takeaway there would be to be intentional. Like don't over sign up for a million things. If your school gives you the opportunity to do a bunch of like work outside of school, just don't do too much of it because your grades are still obviously really important.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think maybe the big takeaway, there's maybe little differences at different schools, what you can do as a 1L what you have access to. I just looked it up actually. Columbia's pro bono stuff you can't actually do till the spring semester of 1L. So there is a little difference there. 1L positions are maybe more limited in journals. But the big takeaway is like Nicole said, don't overcommit. Do some stuff that's fun. Do some stuff where you'll meet people. Do some stuff where you can get a free lunch or dinner here and there. And mostly focus on your studies. And joining something doesn't have to detract from your studies. But, and it can be fulfilling because it can give you friends and it can give you experiences. And it can remind you, I think when you're deep in the doctrinal curriculum, you might lose sight of like, why did I come to law school again? And joining something like a journal or a pro bono group or an affiliation group, affinity group can remind you, oh yeah, there's a reason I came here. There's a reason. There's something I want to do in law, that isn't contracts or or torts, or maybe those are the things you want to do. But if they aren't, you might, you might benefit from that reminder. So the clubs are for your fulfillment and stimulation and your learning and meeting people. They're not like hardcore requirements. At least that was made clear to us. Like, what matters right now is kind of like the classes. And it sounds like you, Nicole, are you didn't bite off more than you could chew. I think I bit off a little much, but I feel okay. And you can always tone it down later. Like, don't be afraid to join something and then leave it. It's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And everybody understands. Like, even if I'm making it sound like my pro bono work was like some lift, they also totally understood that we're 1Ls in our first semester. So you can always ask they would make very clear, like, you can extend deadlines. On our journal, lots of people extended the deadline for the first assignment because it was during finals when we had to submit our first round checks. And so it's very chill. You can always leave, and you can always tell people like, I'm way too busy right now. I can't do anything this week. And that's fine. People get it. So yeah, it's all about meeting friends.
I'm jealous of how much pro bono you've gotten to do and just like your access to like what feels like real legal work so early on. I feel like I'm itching to do that. Yeah.
It can be really fun and really meaningful. And you're right. Like, it gives you some motivation. But I will say, I think being like in student government and affinity groups is also really, really cool. I was kind of jealous I didn't join any kind of like affinity group because it seems like not only is it like you're meeting a lot of people, but also they provide tons of resources too. Like, being in the group, like they put on at Berkeley, for example, like certain affinity groups would put on their own exclusive like interviewing panels or like resume reading workshops and stuff. So being part of those groups is also super, super helpful for your career too. And I think it's a great idea.
That's true. I did take advantage. We had some resume workshops, some interview workshops. We had actually partners at law firms, who are part of the same identity group or identity affiliation that would host us and do Q&As with us. And so that, there's a lot of ways to get access and learn things and get mentors through the different student groups. So whether it's an affinity group or a journal or whatever, I think just joining something can give you a lot of access, not just to other students, but like to alums and to people at firms and people at organizations you might want to work at if you don't want to work at a firm. So yeah, I 100%. Nicole is saying all the right things.
Yeah, and I'm sure whatever school you guys end up at the beginning of the year, whether during orientation or like week 1, there will be some format of like fair where you get exposed to all these different things. And you should definitely check that out for the free food, as ZeSean mentioned, but also because that's where you'll learn about the different groups. And it's a great way to do so. I think that might be a nice segue into another episode where next time maybe we can talk about like hiring and how you get into the resume and interview process and stuff, and how you can like coincide that with studying and whatnot. Because that was like towards the 2/3 ish section of the semester, right? When like hiring stuff started.
Mine started earlier, but I guess we can get into it next episode.
Yeah, so it seems like the next chronological progression is like starting hiring. Cool. Well, thank you guys for listening. Hopefully you got some cool information about midterms and extracurriculars in 1L. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and check out 7Sage's other LSAT-related services like prep and live classes and admissions consulting for law school, so you can start the 1L journey just like us. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in.